Is that too bright for you, sir?
That's okay.
Okay. And we're squared away. We're good.
Okay. Permit me to thank the press in the room, as well as the many members of the press who may be watching from home or from their offices. People are working from home. And I would also thank the many persons who are viewing this as we live stream it. The essence of this message today is that the Texas Republican Party has lost its way. The Texas Republican Party desires to go back to a future that doesn't exist. The Texas Republican Party wants to live in the past, in a past where voting rights for minorities were trampled upon. This would take us back to before the Voting Rights Act became law in 1965. They'd like to go back to a past where transgender people had no rights.
Thank you.
This would clearly take us back before June 30th of 2016, when trans persons couldn't serve in the military. They'd like to go back to a past where guns determine the outcome of disputes. This could take us back to July 11, 1804, when Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel. People literally resolved their disputes by shooting it out. They'd like to take us back to a past where there was no United Nations. This would be before the founding of the United Nations in October of 1945. The Texas Republican Party has clearly lost its way because it wants to secede from the Union. This would take us back to before Texas became a part of the Union in December of 1845. Friends, the Texas Republican Party cannot take us back to a past that doesn't exist, obviously, but also a past that had horrific consequences for people. For example, the desire to ban abortion. This would take us back to before Roe versus Wade, January 22nd of 1973. People of goodwill have to take a stand. And I'm here today to say that people of goodwill must take a stand. I'm also here today to say that we're going to have a town meeting this weekend. A town meeting, and we're going to have persons there who will address each of these policy positions that the Texas Republican Party wants to reverse. And we're going to explain to people why it's so important to have these policy positions as they are, as opposed to allowing the Republican Party in the state of Texas to roll back the clock, to turn back the hands of time. We won't accept it. We have to understand it, however, and to understand it, we need to have this town meeting this weekend coming up, this Saturday, so that we can explain it to people. I will give you more information about the town meeting as we progress. But today I want to suggest that everybody's got to get involved in this. I hope that you can see that the Republican Party appears to be, all these policy positions that I have to deal with in Congress, it appears to be moving backwards. It appears to want to take this great nation back to a past that many people thought we'd never see again. We thought that we fought the fight for civil rights and the right to vote. We thought we fought the fight to have a woman have her own choice about things that are related to her body. We thought we fought the fight that would deal with trans persons being recognized and identified and respected. We thought that Texas was a part of the Union. I surely thought that fight was over. And the notion that we should resolve our disputes with guns, that's what you're saying when you have no gun safety laws. Gun safety laws save lives. If you're not going to have any gun safety laws and everybody's going to have a gun and it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, you're literally saying we're going to solve many of our disputes with guns. And that's what you see happening now. Many of these young people and people in general are resolving their disputes with guns. We saw it just recently in Washington, D.C. And the Texas Republican Party is encouraging this. Their behavior as it relates to gun safety sends a message to people that it's okay to use your gun to resolve your concerns in life, which is a sad state of affairs, not only for us here in the state of Texas, but for people across the globe. I don't want to live in a society where the biggest gun rules or where the person with the quickest draw wins. We've gone through that. This is not the wild, wild west, or it shouldn't be, but it looks like it may be. So we have to examine these policy positions, explain to people where we are, so they can better understand that they have to take a stand. And finally, on the question of taking a stand, I have to ask the question, where is the organized business community? The organized business community. I'm not talking about mom and pops. I'm not talking about small businesses. I'm talking about the captains of industry, the people who shape the country, the people who take pride in saying this is my country and that we have the best society in the world. But where is this organized business community? Walmart store, persons murdered. Tops grocery store, persons murdered. That ought to mean something to the organized business community. You've got to get involved. You've got to take a stand. Why? Because many of the people who are dealing with these policy positions in Congress and in state houses around the country, many of the people who deal with these things, they respect you. They listen to you for various and sundry reasons. They listen to you. You've been their supporters. They listen to you. And it's time for you to send them a message that you won't tolerate having guns of war, weapons of war in the hands of 18-year-olds. That's a message that the business community can send, the organized business community, the captains of industry. This kind of messaging has to come from the business community as well. We've reached a point now where nobody can be on the sidelines. Everybody's got to get involved because our country, our democracy, our way of life is at risk. I'm not exaggerating. If you can't see it, come to the event this weekend. Hear other people explain, as I will explain as well, about these policy positions, where we'll say a lot more about each of them. Friends, I beg that you please know that I love my country. I'm proud to be in my country, but I also want to make my country a better place. And to do that, I absolutely have to ask that we all get involved, we all take a position, and I ask the question, where is the organized business community? I respectfully now will address questions that you might have.
Congressman, what kind of message is it sending when you see elected officials doing commercials with, assault rifles, guns, and guys dressed in combat suits for their campaign? In the time that we're in right now, what kind of message is it sending?
I've seen this ad, portions of it, that has a person running for a very high office, armed with what appears to be a long gun, indicating that rhinos is a term that's being used, that is open season on rhinos. Friends, people who, in your opinion, are Republicans in name only, have a right to be Republicans in name only, if that's the absolute fact. They've got a right to. You have no right to send messages indicating that these persons can be harmed, that these persons can suffer as a result of your deciding that you can hunt them down. Are we now in a society where we're going to resolve issues related to elections with long guns where you hunt people down, open season on people that you differ with? This is not the America that we have fought for, that people have died for. We resolve our disputes with the ballot, not the bullet. And that's where these kinds of commercials are taking us. Back to Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. That was a political dispute, resolved with one of them dying in a duel. These persons who send these messages with these guns and political ads are simply indicating that people can resolve their disputes with the bullet as opposed to the ballot. And that has to stop. We must find a way to stop that type of advertising. Free speech has its limits. Threatening to kill people or sending messages that people can be killed is not acceptable. There are limits. That crosses the line. And we've got to do things to save lives and prevent these kinds of messages from continuing.
And Congressman, I noticed that when you were speaking that you said that we were revisiting a lot of events that we've already visited or covered. Why do you think history is repeating itself, or why do you think we're going down that same road again?
There seems to be a desire in this country to have persons who have, for whatever reasons, believed that they occupied a certain status by virtue of who they were. They want to go back to that status. They want to be the persons who are, for want of better terminology, in a superior position. They want to be in a superior position. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was acquired by virtue of people suffering on Bloody Sunday at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which gave President Lyndon Johnson, a great president from Texas, the opportunity to put it into law, leveled the playing field as it related to voting. It truly tried to bring in an era of one person, one vote, and succeeded to a great extent. Since the passage of the Voting Rights Act, we have more minorities in Congress than we've had. We've had more women to get to Congress, more persons who are of different persuasions to get to Congress. The Voting Rights Act has diversified Congress. And these folk, for whatever reasons, see that as a threat to their status, it seems. But it's not a threat to your status. It's a compliment to the country that we are an inclusive society where everybody can succeed on their merits or fail on their demerits. This is not a society where, by virtue of how you look, you should have special opportunities and privileges. That's not the America that we believe in and that we preached about. Now that we're getting there and everybody's having equal opportunities to succeed, it seems that there are some people who want an advantage. So, if there is no Voting Rights Act, we go back to people of color. Black people, brown people, people of color, Asian people. They can be discriminated against with impunity because there won't be the Voting Rights Act to provide the protection that we've had and enjoyed that caused us to integrate this society. It's a great part of the integration of this society. Some people want a superior position. And I regret that there are people in this country now who believe that republicanism is being associated too closely with racism. The Republican Party is not a racist party. Republicanism shouldn't be equated to racism, but the actions are given the perception that it is. And that's very unfortunate for the Republican Party. So many of the people who hold these lofty positions, who associate with the Republican Party, it's time for you to get involved with your party, because these policy positions that they're adopting are detrimental to the well-being and health of this country. I will close with these comments, friends. I have lived long enough now to understand that Dr. King was right. The truest measure of a person is not where you stand in times of comfort and convenience, but where you stand in times of challenge and controversy. The truest measure for these captains of industry, members of the organized business community, the truest measure for you is where will you stand? Will you sit on the sidelines? Dr. King also reminded us that on some issues, at some point, silence becomes betrayal. Silence becomes betrayal. Speak up, speak out, take a stand. The truest measure of the person, not just the man, but the person, is where will you stand in these times of challenge and controversy. Thank you very much.